In this next conversation, we turn to the heart of humanity's spiritual story, religion. From ancient temples to modern faiths, religion reflects our deepest desire to know and be known by God. Ryan will help us understand how these evolving belief systems came about. They are diverse and they all point out to the same impulse, which is the divine realization and meaning of our sonship with God. But we also explore the paradox, how institutions mean to connect us with God sometimes obscure the living personal experience of the divine within. So tell us a little bit more of how religions came about and, because I don't see, I mean, a lot of people may say that, religions are the construct of individuals to enslave humanity. I don't see it that way. It has its negative, or maybe it's dogmatic and structures that maybe constrict us in some cases, but nonetheless, I believe that they are the best or the greatest attempt of humanity to reach out to God.
I do see religion as being a need of the human soul to connect with a creator. So this is part of who we are at our core, and we are divinely driven by that spirit that is going to lead us into a relationship with him. If we evolve in different parts of the world in isolation, it is only logical that individual cultures are going to evolve around that basic human need. And this is the basis of all world religion. They have all evolved independently in isolation, and the individual cultural differences that have evolved around those religions are what we see, which is what we focus on.
The differences, not the similarities, right?
Exactly. Instead of focusing on what is at the heart of every world religion, which is a relationship with their creator, we focus on the outward, exterior, what we can see with our eyes visually. This is what we focus on. It is what drives us apart from one another. And then on top of that, we focus on our own religion, which usually dictates an exclusionary principle. Our religion is the one true religion. And so this, again, is like nationalism, creating the us versus them mentality that we are the best, we are better, we are different, they are different than us. So a major leap forward in communication and unification would require an evolution of thought and the removal of monopoly and chosen people teachings within world religions. It can't evolve to that point of unity until we're able to discard those antiquated ideas that keep us separated
and fighting each other. I mean, in throughout history,
endlessly
we see
fighting each other.
Yeah,
Correct. Yes.
I mean, I see like the Protestant wars between Catholicism and Protestantism. That happened in throughout history. You strip everything out. They were all Christians. They were all thinking, or they were all had Jesus at their center. But it was just fighting on the details, fighting on what. But and it wasn't just an argument. There was a war. I mean, there was a whole conflict in our history where they basically thought of or had the same concept. Maybe if you're talking about Hinduism and Christianity, there you have a difference, and you might not that there's a case for conflict, I believe, but you might understand and say, okay, they're opposing views. But in this one, it was basically the same creed, the same prayers, basically that you had. So I see it, and in that point, it was so. I mean, that was the whole thing in the world. That was the conflict. But nowadays, that's gone. Now we see, the Christian world as one. But now there's these other conflicts within the religions, and we're not going to go into details, and because that's not the point of our conversation. But I do want to stress my view of how I see ourselves as, each of us has a fragment of God inside of him. So if God is giving us, number one, a piece of him to have as each individual, within him, and giving us the greatest gift, which is personality, which makes us unique. It's our unique cosmic fingerprint that will be with us throughout eternity. So if God is giving us that uniqueness, why are we so compelled, as maybe as an evolutionary society or civilization, or why are we compelled to go and try to mold everybody into the same mold, instead of seeing those differences and learning from those differences, and maybe taking all those pieces? I always think about this, very nice mosaic, ancient mosaic of different colors, and you can create this beautiful tapestry of different interpretations of God, because in the end it is God, but it's your own individual interpretation. And the way I also frame it is, I mean, if you have brothers and sisters, it's the same thing as that relationship you have with your parents. They're your parents, but each one has its own way of communicating, of communing with that. So, I mean, those are my thoughts. And what can you tell us about that?
I think I heard you ask a question about why is this being perpetuated, and the answer is because it's what is being taught perpetually from the beginning. And in the beginning, when these religions were being formed in isolation, it was for the purpose of creating a community and an idea of who we are as a people. And this
Mm-hmm.
is what defines us. And this is what makes us different. And this is how we recognize that you are a part of this group of people. And it was, again, out of survival. It was a protective instinct, identifying who your people were and understanding that we all had this same view of life and our creator. But as we move toward an interconnected world, and currently live in an interconnected world, heavily interconnected, it no longer behooves us to have these ideas in our religions. It no longer serves the purpose of protecting us from dangerous people in different communities who may be different and want to harm us and take over. It now just reinforces divisive divisions and creates further conflict that prevent us from evolving. I would say that today, as communication and global awareness dissolve these ancient barriers, religion stands on the threshold of its final evolution, meaning
Okay.
meaning that it can transform the competing systems of creator worship into a single shared realization that all paths lead toward that divine center. The
Okay.
history of religion seen through this lens is not a chronicle of separation, but the long unfolding journey of humanity toward spiritual unification.
I mean, I think you put it really clearly. And let me take this analogy or this. And when you're a kid, and as you're evolving and go through puberty and into adulthood, I mean, you change, you transform, and you shed those. I mean, although they were there with you and they built with you, you have to discard a lot of the practices that were they were good and they were applicable for a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, but now that you're a 30-year-old with responsibilities, with certain duties, you have to evolve that. And I think that's what's happening in that sense with religion. At first, like you were saying, it was a thing of protecting, of creating an identity. But now we've come so far, and we're so far evolved in the lifetime of our civilization, that those things are not necessary anymore. It's like being a kid. You don't hit anybody now more. You can do that when you're a kid. It's part of being of growing up. But you see a 30-year-old fighting with somebody, it's not proper. You did that when you were a kid.
there's physical maturity that we experience as we grow older,
Exactly.
which is what you're describing in your metaphor, and there's spiritual maturity that evolves over the generations, the thousands of years that these world religions evolve into what they are as we know them today, and it's an ongoing process. um, and it's time to reconsider some of those ideas that we were taught as children in that spiritual journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the case, you know, one of the things that I understand from what you're saying, you know, in the times that we live, I see it in a lot of you know, the younger generations. They're divested from being in an institutional religion. I mean, they're shying away, and I think that, you know, all right, you can formulate your own ideas, you can, you know, go that path, but you need to have a structure. I think that the worst thing that can happen is not to substitute an institutional religion with a personal religion, but to discard it all, you know, and saying, you know, God doesn't exist. And that I see the problem, and what the pitfall that we can fall into, you know, of completely discarding God just because we do not want to be within a certain dogma or a certain a structure, right?
And what I would argue also is that unifying religion into a single global faith does not mean erasing uh, the beauty of diversity and individual cultural differences, but instead revealing the common essence beneath it, the universal truths that every great tradition has sought to express. At the heart of all religions lies the same divine reality that God or the source or the creator is one, and humanity is one family. Love, truth, service, and these are the highest forms of worship. A unified world religion would honor those
Yeah.
traditions toward a unified uh, revelation, uh,
Okay.
blending reason with faith and spiritual experience with moral action. Such a faith would not require the uniformity of rituals
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
doctrines, but it would be a harmony of purpose, a shared understanding
Nice.
of the that the goal of religion is not division or dominance, but the upliftment of mankind toward our spiritual destiny.
I really like this because, I mean, what you're saying is that we shouldn't focus on those differences. Differences are always going to be there, but if we look at the similarities, I mean, it all falls into that, into love, which is, you can, I see it, you know, love is the center, and then you have truth, beauty, and goodness. As long as you're fostering truth and you're looking for truth, if you're doing goodness in your heart, your intentions, I mean, we're imperfect, and we commit mistakes and we err. But if your intention is within goodness, you know, you're trying to bring that out, I mean, eventually you'll correct those wrongs. And and beauty, you know, it's one of the greatest things that we can imitate art. We can, you know, through our art we're reflecting the world that we see. So that's so beautiful that, you know, beauty is something that we admire and we try to imitate. So if we stay, you know, with any religion or any individual that has, as you were saying, this unified religion, which is, like you say, it's not a dogma, it's not you know, going and doing certain rituals, but it's really unifying in heart under these ideals of truth, beauty, and goodness, in my belief.
I agree. And so if I take this a step further than a mere conversation about these divine qualities, we realize that it's important to share these ideas on a global scale. And sharing these ideas on a global scale requires using modern communication, books, media, digital platforms to translate these spiritual truths into every language and culture and symbolism. Education must present the world's religions not as rivals, but as complementary
Yeah,
expressions of divine revelation. Um,
I like that.
Global dialogue among faith leaders and thinkers will help dissolve those prejudices and awaken collective spiritual identities. Through these efforts, humanity will shift religious competition to cooperation and build the foundation of a unified world faith.
I like that. I like that. And now that you mentioned that, I mean, we've been talking about the evolution. We've been talking about the role of religions in our human institutions. You know, the longing for God. But what is the future? What awaits us? You know, you're talking about this unified government. Is that the future of global cooperation? And what does it look like? I mean, you're talking, and this is something that's not new. I mean, ever since I think of you know, the ancient world, even it was trying to unite the world. So, how can we, in this modern times, with all the technology and the communication and in the interconnectedness, why can we do it? Because it's always a possibility, it's never a given. Why is there is today a time, and how to reach this?
Well, it's coming. It's going to take time, but it's definitely going to happen. It's inevitable. Um, Survival dictates that we unify over and over again in larger and larger numbers. We do this for the sake of peace and security. Eventually, it's going to happen one more time. Um, my goal is to see it achieved before the next global conflict. But eventually, the alignment of spiritual understandings and cross cultures can make a unified world government possible. Shared ethical principles and respect for human dignity. Um,
Dignity, yes.
with a single world religion reflecting the universal truths, societies will act from a common moral framework, reducing conflict and fostering cooperation. Together, a global government and unified world faith will guide humanity toward lasting peace, prosperity, and collective progress.
Awesome. I see that there is a lot of a lot of stuff, a lot of work in an individual and collective sense. And one of the things that you mentioned, and I want to touch on this because with this, it's been, you know, a current, a recurring theme in the podcast is human dignity, and that's something that I think we've lost. You know, the modern world, be it as it may, and you know, all the technology and interconnectedness that it brings us, it also makes us a number. We become, you know, a consumer. We become a part of the algorithm, and we lose that dignity. We lose the dignity of the human being, and I think that's really it's tragic, and it's really it can be perilous because we are not seeing the humanity in us, but just a number. And I think if the one that I use as a reference to, you know, give that dignity to people, where how can I treat people with the dignity they deserve, has always been Jesus. I think that if you believe in him, if you believe in whatever a way that you believe in him, if you take his example of the dignity he would give to even lepers and you know, people that are deemed undesirables in any society, what does that teach you about or bring about the dignity and the value of a human being?
Yes, and I agree with you completely. Jesus was the perfect model for that. He preached equality across race, religion, sex, everything. Jesus was about equality and unifying us as one family. He never had the intention of creating a cult following with a exclusionary dogma about his about his life, his sacrifice. So uh, Jesus wanted everyone to know that they are all intrinsically valuable and loved by our Father. And that was his message. We are all worshiping the same God. Every one of these world religions is evolving from their need to communicate and have a relationship with that one God. And we are all one family. So, importantly, it is necessary that we see human dignity as the inherent worth of all individuals, which must be recognized and protected in all societies. Human rights are the practical expression of dignity, ensuring freedom, equality, and justice for everyone, regardless of race, religion, status, all of that. So, again, this is what we are working for as we evolve spiritually.
I like that. I like that. I mean, if we take, I mean, we're talking about the way Jesus really saw humanity, and you were saying something very specific, that kind of turns into nationalism, and also in religion. When we look at it, religion, it becomes, unaccepting, and we have chaos and things like the Inquisition, where people were persecuted and tortured and killed. So here, taking the example of Jesus, and he was the first one that did not consider himself to be just a Jew, and his message not to be just for Jews, it was for Jews and Gentiles, and he took it everywhere. So 2000 years ago, something that is so common nowadays, about unity and about getting together, this is something that Jesus told us 2000, not only told us, and this is what I really like about Jesus, and he didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk, and he showed us in a practical way that value and dignity of the human soul.
Agree with you. Yes, I want everyone to see Jesus as a unifier. Jesus should be seen as the ultimate unifier whose teachings of love and compassion and forgiveness transcend every culture or religious or social boundary. His message calls all people to come together and share their humanity, emphasizing common purpose over division. And that is, again, part of what I write about and what I share with people when I speak.
I mean, and this is if you can take that model of what Jesus did and extract that and live your life by that, I think you're basically halfway in your evolution. And I want to, now that you were mentioning about social evolution, and in your experience, I know that a lot of your work, the source is the Urantia book. So how does the Urantia perspective differ from the secular theories of social evolution and government? What is the difference there from what we normally know?
There are differences. Most secular theorists describe evolution as something driven by survival and economics or social adaptation. Like I was saying earlier, my perspective is also the Urantia perspective, adding a spiritual element to that equation,
To
suggesting that
evolution, to
civilization,
yeah,
right,
in evolution,
it's
right?
right. In our
Okay,
evolution, it's not just
exactly.
biological, it is spiritual.
Okay.
This is what the Urantia book is teaching.
On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.